Good evening, everyone. It is 7:15 here in Warsaw, Poland, and I am joined again by Ibn Alwarraq, someone who, as those of you who've listened to our previous discussions, is highly educated, in many ways more knowledgeable than I am on various Islamic topics, has a perspective that I think very few people share. He's definitely in a league of his own, or at least in the same league as some of the very, very best. And we're here to discuss a couple of Islamic topics again today. And thank you, Ibn Al-Waraq. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me again. Quite brave of you.
Brave? Why brave?
Because as you said, I have my own opinion about a lot of things, so I don't swim with the crowd. So sometimes what I say might rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah, I think that's pretty common for me. I mean, I've got 500 plus videos on my channel. Many of them go against the mainstream narrative. I've got very detailed research, and I have views that are not necessarily popular, but I believe that one has to speak the truth, and if you can defend it with the facts. Yeah. So let me see. I just double checking that we are streaming, but because yes, we're live on Rumble. I'm just checking on YouTube that everything's going all right because sometimes there's a short delay. And yes, we're live on YouTube. So yeah, so today my aim was to talk about a couple of topics. One, it's in the title. There's a huge issue in the West about hate speech, and as we all see in the UK, for instance, people are being arrested for asking people to speak English. People are being arrested for saying go England during a march to celebrate Hamas and support Hamas, which is a terror organization which is actually proscribed in the UK, for which almost no one has been prosecuted. But people who walk with the Union Jack alongside a pro Hamas rally, which has Iranian flags, which has Hamas flags, which has Palestine flags, which has the black flag of jihad, those people are just fine. But you walk with a Union Jack next to them, you will be arrested, and people have been for whatever made up reasons, inciting the crowd or being English or being white in a dark skinned area or something. So this is what's happening, and hate speech is a big thing. But Islam is literally hate speech. The Quran is hate speech, and Islam teaches hatred towards non-Muslims.
Isn't that kind of expected? Because the leaders of Europe today are the ones who studied in the 70s and 60s and afterwards. They literally been brought up in post-colonial and post-imperial studies where
Right.
they actually see the West as the pure evil. So, and they
Mm.
already, the leaders of Europe subscribe to that idea full-heartedly, and they see any differentiation between European and non-European, the European are in the wrong. So if you're raising a German flag or a Union Jack or a French flag, you must be colonialist, imperialist, racist. But if you're a brown guy from Afghanistan, then you're the persecuted, the power dynamic thingy, you're persecuted, therefore you can't be wrong. It's an absolutely insane, but I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theology. It has its own moral system. It has its own. I mean, it's got the sacrament of original sin because being white, but that's something you can't change. There is no forgiveness. There is only subservience. There is only subjugation and groveling, while you constantly apologize for having white skin. I mean, this is insane. I have white family. I certainly do not want to see my family live in that kind of state and constantly under the boot of some kind of tyrant or under threat of violence.
And there is no amount of apology that is good enough, because whatever amount of apology you offer, they want more.
Yeah, no, it's predatory because once you show weakness, they come in for more. They come for blood because you've shown weakness. And thank you, Moon T. Yeah, Solzhenitsyn. Have you read any Solzhenitsyn?
The Gulag, I read the Gulag Archipelago. I read a couple of other things, but the Gulag Archipelago was absolutely devastating. The guy was screaming for a couple of thousand pages, morally screaming.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the last century's most profound writers, and few have I think been as clear and as influential as he has. But one thing he says and is that the lie is in the world. People are practicing the lie. People are implementing the lie. People are putting it into effect everywhere. And he says, let the lie do what the lie must, right? But let people lie. Let the lie even win. However, do not let the lie win through you. Do not let the lie accomplish its goals through you. And he
Because
said,
if every individual managed to do one little thing, you don't have to change the world. Just don't let the world change you. That will be a win.
yeah,
But today you're getting in a place where um, we completely ignore. There was one video I saw a couple of weeks ago. There, one of the chief editors of Wikipedia who said a statement. It's absolutely disturbing. Sometimes truth are get in the way of information or
oh,
something like that.
wait, no, this was you talking
Correct.
about this was the head.
Sometimes
This was
truth
the
is
head
distracting.
of this was the head of one of the U.S. agencies. That's a woman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes truth is distracting.
yeah. She says, yeah, our desire for the truth takes us. Yeah, yeah. Um, she said, yes, that our desire for truth gets in the way of connecting and talking to people. And unfortunately, if you're Christian, you have to serve the truth. You have to speak the truth. You have to
If
live.
you're a Christian, you wouldn't understand the sentence she said
Yeah, yeah.
because
So
it's incomprehensible to me how is truth is distracted from reality or from the connecting. Because if I'm going to connect with you over lies, thanks a lot. I have better things to do with my time.
yeah, no, we are required to speak the truth. And back to Solzhenitsyn for a moment. What he said was, look, we are single, small individuals. We don't have the force of government behind us. However, he says all that we are required to do is to speak the truth. He says there will be a price to pay for that truth, but with all the lie that's out there in the world, speak the truth. If that's all that you can do, then do that. So know what the truth is and speak it, and be willing to pay the price for that. But the truth will defeat the lie. Yeah. Any comment on that before I move on to the two topics of our conversation today?
Sorry, I'm in absolutely no position to correct, or expand also Solzhenitsyn's statement. I'm just
Yeah.
listening and says, okay.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
people of that caliber, you listen and learn.
yeah, true, true. Yeah. So what I want to cover today, there's two topics, and then what I'll do is perhaps we can plan another time where you can come on and speak on again. Say, I did mention to you the Muslim Brotherhood or a different topic that is of relevance, that because you have a great deal of knowledge in a number of areas, and we should be able to speak about these things because there's so much in Islam. There's so much fake history. I mean, that's something that I love, and I know that you love as well. So, correcting the errors of history.
Muslim Brotherhood, we could do that one time, but we actually have to go like probably 50 to 100 years before they started.
Sure.
You have to go to Gamal al-Afghani to reach Hassan al-Banna.
All right. Is it true? Because I've been reading and a little bit of digging. Hassan al-Banna was not his actual surname, and he was apparently a Freemason. It's acknowledged he's a Freemason, and al-Banna
Uh,
was an
Gamal al-Din al-Afghani, one of the original philosophers of the Muslim Brotherhood as a movement, was a Freemason
Mhm.
as methodology. There are some evidence he was member, but some evidence he was not. But methodologically, he was a Freemason.
Right,
Al-Urwa al-Wuthqa he started was a secret society built on a Freemason hierarchy.
right. So
Sayyid
yeah,
Qutb used the Freemason hierarchy. Muslim Brotherhood until today, they use Freemason hierarchy. Those are in the higher end of the pyramids, knows much more than those on the base, and the one in the base doesn't know and doesn't ask and just follow order. They have
Right.
absolute obedience, and they are using Freemason
So the structure,
methodology.
at least at the very minimum, the guy had knowledge of Freemasonry and is using the structure in his own organization.
Oh, Syed Qutb used to write to a Freemason magazine.
All right. And Hassan al-Banna apparently was also a Freemason. That's acknowledged, I know, even in the Muslim world. And apparently
He
al-Banna,
was, and he was a Nazi as well,
wow, I didn't know that.
because he did. There is a couple of books in Arabic about it. One of them called Operation Balcony, where he actually rented an apartment right by the Farouq's palace in order to spy on the king of Egypt, or in order to work as the go in between the Third Reich and the Egyptian government. So he was an active spy for the German.
Wow.
I'll,
And I was,
I'll I'll send you a couple of articles. They are in Arabic, but you can use Google Translate, which were published a couple of years ago in a Saudi newspaper, Hukaz, called Nazi Brotherhood. That
wow.
was the article
Okay,
title.
that is
So,
news.
uh,
That's very interesting. And what's interesting is also apparently his surname al-Banna means builder,
yes,
because apparently he used that as a nickname, as
but
a
it wasn't his real name.
yes,
I
it wasn't
can't
his real
remember
name, but the reason
his real
they
name.
used builder was because builder is like a play on the word Mason,
Mason. Yeah.
Freemason. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of, and I learned something today. Today I was listening to stuff on the Freemasons, and apparently the Mormon Church is also structured very much along the lines of the Freemason order. And then I learned some things about the Freemasons that I need to verify, of course, but there's something deep and dark about the Freemasons that people just don't appreciate. They've been involved in some of the most violent, most lethal, most deadly events in history, and so yeah, just a group that people seem to think is often just, shall we say, harmless, but apparently that is not the case.
Oh, and it was all 18th and 19th century, the mythical Egyptian religion, and so there's Egyptian mythology plays quite a lot in Freemasons. That's
Yeah,
why you have a lot of Egyptian symbols are used in Freemasonry.
but
But
then
the funny thing, everything they know and they say about Egyptian mythology is wrong.
yeah,
So
but then you see
they
that the
made
facts
up.
don't matter. And then on top of that, if you go into the Sufis claim that they inherited the secret knowledge of the Egyptian mystery temples as well. So all of these groups they converge on the Egyptian mystery religion, and they've got their own flavors and versions, and they all have their own
Yeah,
version of
except the
both.
Egyptian mystery religion they made up is made up. It's not actually has anything to do with
Yeah.
ancient Egypt.
And they've all got
It's,
their own version of Hermes Trismegistus or Thoth. I mean, everyone just turns him into whatever cartoon character they need to suit their narrative. It's just, yeah. But the Freemasons, I'll agree, Philip, they are demonic, and yeah, there's something very dark and dirty about them. But yeah, let's dive into. But this would be a very interesting discussion. Even this would be very interesting to discuss. Looking at the more,
yeah, I found I was looking up his name. His according to several sources, his family name was Saati, the watchmaker, uh,
watchmaker.
which he changed was Hassan Ahmed Abdurrahman Muhammad Saati.
Okay.
And then came El Banna. Either El Banna is one of the other names and included in the long name, or it's completely made up. I cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah. Yeah, to answer RJ's questions, are the Freemasons dabbling with demons? Now, look, many Freemasons will obviously say no, they're not. But then again, apparently the Freemasons at the top, according to some information I was learning today, again, to be verified. But yes, there is something deeply demonic. But again, also think of this. I just want to make one small point, then I'll dive into my article. Think of this. Atheism for centuries was a religion. Even in the US today, it is legally and formally a religion. Do they call it a religion? No, because they want to hide their intentions. Now, the Freemasons are, for all intents and purposes, if you look at what constitutes a religion, then Freemasonry is religion. It has all the necessary components to be defined as a religion. Why don't they call it? Because many Christians, especially within the Baptist Church, are Freemasons. And the thing is that if you're a Christian, can you be a Buddhist? No. If you're a Christian, can you also be a Sikh? If you're a Christian, can you be a Baha'i? No, you're a Christian. You can only have the one religion. So if you're a Christian, how can you be a Freemason? Because you've now just adopted another religion. So of course they can't call it a religion because that's how they fool you.
And whatever they're going to say about it, once you have an organization start by saying we are a secret society, anything else said after that is doubtful, because you already told me you're a secret society. So we're not a religion. Yeah, that's part of the secrets, because if you're a
Yeah.
secret society, the information you're giving me will be at least selective or untrue. You, you
Yeah.
know, you cannot have a transparent secret society. Doesn't work.
Exactly. So very well said. Yeah. So okay, let's dive into
Your
this.
article.
Yeah, let's dive into the article. Um, so what I've got here is Islam teaches hatred of non-Muslims, an ugly truth that Westerners must face. And I think we all want to believe in the best. We all want to believe in people, but few people need to realize if you study certain cultures, certain religions, certain ideologies. For instance, you take the Roma, the Gypsies, as people call them, the Roma. They teach their children to lie and steal. Now, maybe you and your household were taught to value the truth and never to steal, don't sin, don't do crimes. They teach their children to sin and do crimes. That's just how it is in some cultures. And you need to understand that and you need to reject it. But people, they don't want to cause offense. They don't want to be racist. Well, at some point, you need to start calling it what it is and follow the truth wherever it leads. Your thought on that, Ibn Alwarraq?
No, carry on, because there's some part of the article you said that you just want to
Yep.
highlight.
Oh, wow. Religion listed as Freemason. Philip, there you go. Thank you. Yeah. That's very, very interesting point there. Okay, so Islam teaches hatred of non-Muslims. And the article here, you've seen my title, Islam versus Christianity. It's the rebirth of Cain, because Cain killed Abel, and Cain is trying to kill Abel. Cain is trying to usurp Abel. So Islam teaches hatred of non-Muslims, and that is an ugly truth that Westerners must face. Now, the foundational moral teaching from the Old Testament are the Ten Commandments. In the Gospels, you have the example of Jesus, peace be upon him. That's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek statement. But Islam inverts all of these moral teachings. It rejects them. And we can see by the counterexample of Muhammad, the police be upon him. So Islam, by default, teaches religious hatred of others. Now, Islam is mischaracterized as a religion of peace, but its teaching and practices derive from a hostility, an endless hostility towards non-Muslims, rooted in core texts and doctrines. Now, everyone quotes the Quran. You'll quote a verse. The thing is, for instance, in the Quran, there's one or two verses, maybe 20 words, 30 words, discussing chopping off of hands. How many Muslims haven't you met that come across and tell you in the comments, no, there's no such thing as amputation. Oh, no, it's meant only figuratively. Oh, no, it has an allegorical meaning. Or they'll just deny it flat out, despite this. But you got two verses in the Quran. How do you derive law from that? Well, if you go into the Sharia, you go into the Hidayah, for instance, you'll find something like nearly 60 pages of detailed instruction of how and when to amputate, who gets amputated, very, very detailed. So those two verses have been turned into doctrine. And that doctrine is applied, and through practice and culture and experience, it's become law and formed the doctrine, and that doctrine is now law within Islam. So we need to look at doctrine. Would you agree?
I would, but I would add one more thing. That the whole idea of George Bush, Islam means peace. It's extremely disingenuous, because linguistically the word actually has the root of the word has so many different meaning, including poison, salam.
Mm,
But the actual religious terminology is it's submission.
yeah,
You know, to have peace in Islam, to have salam, is to have submission, an absolute and total submission. Has nothing to do with peace.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. So Islam clashes with our Western values of universal tolerance, and Islam forms insular communities. They then impose their Sharia practices. And Islam has a very primitive morality if you look at the example of Muhammad, especially compared to the example of Jesus. So they invert the morality of the Bible, they invert the morality of Jesus, and they aggressively, very aggressively force their values. And this is very hard for Westerners to accept. But the simple fact is we need to face the truth. Now, the Bible's message, for instance, is historical, it's descriptive, it's poetic. However, you've got the Bible that culminates in the teaching of Jesus in the Gospels as the fulfillment of the message of God through the Bible, through the Old Testament. But the Quran is different. It is prescriptive. Muhammad's example is prescriptive, it's normative. So the Quran directly promotes hostility, and this is now permanent doctrine. Any thoughts, Ibn, before I go on?
Uh, yes, but it does promote hostility. But there is a level of gradualism in Islam that was followed in the beginning and is still followed today. You will see the example. I think we talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
Once you are in the underdog, you want to be nice. We just don't want anything other than to worship in peace and leave us alone. Once you have the upper hand, remember what happened to the Jews of Medina
Yeah.
and Khaybar and other places. So the level of gradualism, you probably will see it in the history of Europe in the last 50 years, because you moved from extremely peaceful Muslim in the 60s and 70s in Europe to what you have today. And what you have today is actually nowhere near what's coming. So that level of gradualism is warranted and founded by Muhammad, and which allow you highlighted this several times before, which allow you when you're in the underdog, where you don't have the upper hand, you can lie and deceive and pretend that nothing you say means anything until you have the authority and the power to change it, if not by force or by the system itself. So it's not always submission from the top up. They can follow a level of gradualism. You will see it differ from countries to country based on um, the majority or the minority population, I believe.
Yep. So you can see in the Quran, it says, "So do not weaken and call for peace while you are superior." In other words, people only call for peace in wartime conditions. That's like a ceasefire. But it says, no, 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 don't call for peace when you have the upper hand. So Allah will never deprive you of the reward of your deeds, which is taking the possessions of those whom you conquer. So, yeah. So, and also when they speak of no, but that's only in context of oppressors, well, you are oppressing Islam by not adopting Islam and fulfilling Allah's will in your country.
It's the whole old case with we're using same words, but we don't mean the same thing by the same words.
Right.
It's the word indexing, the word reference. We're using different reference to the word oppressor. What do we mean? Does he mean? For him, oppressor means not Muslim.
Yeah, yeah, correct. That's a good point. Yes. So the Quran contains verses, as we know, that call for enmity, hatred, or violence against non-Muslims. However, this verse or these verses become doctrine, and these doctrine are in books, and these books are taught to children. They're read, they're studied in seminaries, and they form laws, they form culture. So, Quran 60 verse 4 is very important here. This sets the
Could you please read the whole verse, not just the part you put in, because that's very important.
okay. Yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. Here we go. So there's a goodly pattern for you. Okay, there's really been an excellent pattern in Abraham and those with him when they said to their people, "We are disassociated from you and from whatever you worship other than Allah." Although this will be covered later in the article. So
Yeah,
uh, we have denied you, and there has appeared between us and you animosity and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone. So if you don't become a Muslim, we are required, according to the creed of Abraham, Abraham taught, hate the Jews, hate the Christians forever, because you must become a Muslim for those who follow Abraham not to hate you. This is an abuse of the history or the facts.
Okay, but I would like you to notice two things. One, that's a good example, i.e., is an example to be followed.
Yep.
And two, he was talking to his father. So that animosity and hatred is towards even his own father.
Wow.
And that's the example to be followed. It will explain why you would have some of the red-haired European new Muslims have so much hatred for their own country, their own culture, their own people. Because the pure example of Abraham is, yeah, you hate your father, you hate your people. Because, again, the definition of the words, if they are not Muslim, therefore they are not innocent, and it's a hatred and animosity between you and them, which he's supposed to follow, including your own family.
Right. Yeah, that's the saying of Abraham to his father, I will ask forgiveness for you. So this creed of Abraham has become a doctrine called Al-Wala wal-Bara. So we'll come to that. But yeah, excellent point there. So, because it says, indeed, we are disassociated from you and from what you worship from besides Allah. We have rejected you, and there's arisen between us and you enmity and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone. So this is Allah's position. This is what Abraham supposedly taught to the Muslims. Abraham was a Muslim, apparently. So there is enmity and hatred of non-Muslims forever, and Muslims must follow the will of Allah. And the rest is just temporary diplomacy, just going along to get along until they are uppermost. So, for instance, you can go to Ibn Kathir, the very well-known Muslim scholar, meaning that Muslims must disavow non-Muslims until they convert. It's a command for perpetual hatred. Any thoughts, Ibn Warraq?
I remember a story, a friend of mine, he was naturalized American. And I did ask him, how could you actually swear the oath of allegiance? Because the naturalization process in America, the oath of allegiance include that you disavow any loyalty to any other system or creed.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, I never meant it. He said, we're allowed to do that. We never meant it because my loyalty and my oath to the creed comes first to Islam. And that piece of paper doesn't give me any loyalty to. And he would work on it and to swear the oath, and it doesn't mean a word of it. You can you can apply that to a lot of other oaths where in non-Muslim society, Muslim would take, whether it's an army officer, a police officer, or something alike. It doesn't mean it.
That is shocking. I mean, that is shocking. So it means that, I mean, with a culture that's built on lying, the doctrine of lying, you can't believe a word they say. There's nothing you can believe, which is just like the Freemasons. If they're a secret society and they have secrets, you can't believe anything. We've got Kenneth asking, can I join the talk? Kenneth, which Kenneth are you? So now Quran 9:5, the verse of the sword, you've got, when the sacred months have passed, kill the polytheists wherever you find them and capture them and besiege them and sit in wait for them at every place of ambush. Now these sacred months ended 1400 years ago in the 7th century. Scholars like Al-Tabari see this as abrogating. This is the verse, or one of many verses, that abrogate earlier verses, more peaceful verses. Now, in this case, it targets the polytheists, but it has been extended to others. Now, of course, Muslims now say that Muslims worship, non-Muslims like Christians worship multiple gods, so therefore we are polytheists. The Trinity, the concept of the Trinity has now become us worshipping multiple gods. So now this means that the Islamic State and others will do violence against, like, the Yazidis, where they've literally killed tens or thousands of Yazidis or enslaved them, use them as sex slaves. I mean, it's an incredibly horrendous crime that has effectively been forgotten. The UN didn't want to talk about it, just like what Hamas does. So we see this in the historical and ongoing displacement of both Jews, Christians, Druze, and Alawites across the Middle East and Africa. I mean, ask yourself, where are the Jews of Africa? They've been displaced, they've been genocided, they've been kicked out, they've been ethnically cleansed. But of course, in their millions, but then, everyone's going on about the issues happening in Gaza. But of course, you've got many, many, many times more have been murdered in Turkey, have been murdered in Syria, have been murdered in Sudan. And no one cares because no Jews, no news. So, yeah, Evan?
Two quick points. That verse you quoted, 9:5,
Yeah.
according to Muslim scholar, it actually abrogated about 124 verses in the Quran. Any verse that talk about peaceful coexistence and tolerance to any other belief system, it's been abrogated by that verse. That's why they call it the verse of the sword, even though some some Muslim might don't like the name, but that's what it's called by Nisapuri and Tabari and others. The other thing, there is a huge discrepancy between comparison-wise when you're comparing what's happened in Gaza and what happened to the Armenian, Yazidi, and others. And the false comparison is if you left the Yazidi and Syrian alone and you didn't come anywhere near them, they don't want to convert you, they don't want to kill you, they don't want to fight against you, they just want to be left alone. But it's not the case in Gaza. If you leave them alone, like what happened in 2005, they are not going to leave you alone. They still want to murder you, they still want to convert you. So it's really not on the same ground at all.
Yeah.
Because a difference between a homeless person sitting in the streets on his own, and if you cross the other road, he doesn't want anything to do with you, and an active shooter in a train. Those are two different categories.
Yeah, who's hunting you? An active shooter who's pre-planned it, premeditated, and he's hunting you. That's a totally different thing.
Yeah, so that's different from the Yazidi and others.
No, agreed. Yeah, and this is few people realize how predatory Islam is. So now, Quran 9:29 says, "Fight those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day from among the people of the book." That's the Jews and the Christians. They put those in brackets just so that we all know. Fight the Jews, fight the Christians, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and they feel themselves subdued. So this mandates fighting, taken on its face as it stands there. This mandates fighting Jews and Christians, not for self-defense, but for their beliefs. And we can see this in the Sharia, which I've covered in the past on jihad. So we must pay this jizya in humiliation. Now, Iran's treatment of Christians in 2024, they do this all over the world, the Muslims, though. You see it in Egypt, you'll see it in Turkey. You have forced closures of churches, echoes this subjugation, this destruction of the Christian identity and promoting purely the Muslim identity. So this leads us to the Islamic doctrine of al-wala wal-bara, right? This is a key component behind these laws within the Sharia. So this is actually a key Islamic doctrine. It's the doctrine they learned from Abraham. It's what Abraham instructed the Muslims to do, which is to hate non-Muslims for the sake of Allah, because Allah hates the non-Muslim. And therefore, the Muslim must hate the non-Muslim. So therefore, Islam is a doctrine of hatred. Any comment before I go on?
Yes, when you were talking about jizya, there is one thing you have to pay attention to, that jizya actually is temporary in Islam. There is a hadith of Muhammad. I shared the screen. Yeah, you can see it. Apparently, when Jesus comes back, he will kill the swine and abolish the jizya. So, what abolishing the jizya actually entails.
But that means that there are no more non-Muslims either.
It means Jews, Christian, and Zoroastrian today, according to Islam, have one of three choices: become a Muslim, or pay a jizya, or die. That's the three choices. Abolishing the jizya means paying the jizya isn't there, so you become a Muslim or die.
Yeah.
So that's the only two options you would have. You cannot pay jizya and remain a Christian. You have to either become a Muslim or die. And I have no idea what pigs did to him, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the logic is quite obvious, and of course, you have all the gaslighting that Muslims put out just to try to convince you otherwise. Well, it's simply to hide the ugly truth, but we cannot let this truth be hidden. We need to accept it and understand it, right? And this is a very key Islamic doctrine, right? It means loyalty and disavowal. You'll sometimes find other adjectives to describe it, right? Enmity and hatred, or but to reject the non-Muslim, be loyal to the Muslims, to love the Muslims, to hate the non-Muslim, to reject the non-Muslims, to distance or separate yourself. Think of it as
That
apartheid.
is the verse 60, Surah 60, verse 4 you read early,
Yeah.
the Abraham one.
Yes, yes. Abraham's teaching it's actually in the Aqidah. It's actually stated in the Aqidah in the Creed of Islam. They have to hate the non-Muslim and love the Muslim only. And in fact, it's crazy that Jesus says, "Why would you love only those who are good to you and hate your enemies?" He says, even what's he said, even tax collectors do that. But he says, no, you should love your enemies. But there is nowhere in Islam that teaches you to love your enemies, to love the non-Muslim, to love the Christian.
It's because one of the purpose of Sharia in Islam is preservation of the innocent life. Uh, but preservation of the innocent life must be defined as Muslim life. So if he loves someone who's not a Muslim, that means his life has become sacred. But Islam doesn't believe in the sacredness and the dignity of non-Muslim human life.
Yeah, you become an Untermensch, right? Very
Yes.
much. You become that was the whole Nazi creed. You have the ones who are worthy of life and the Untermenschen, and in Islam, you become ultimately an Untermensch.
Why do you think Hitler considered Amin al-Husseini to be an honorary Aryan? They
They had
actually said he's
similar ideas.
Romish. He was upgraded to an Aryan somehow.
Yeah, because they had ideas that overlapped, right? Yeah, they were. Yeah, there's a lot of parallels. There's some odd parallels between Nazism and I mean, the last couple of days, as you know, I was having a little discussion with someone. Paul Williams posted something, and I posted a comment on the whole idea of hatred and aggression against Christians in Islam, and then someone started denying this, and then about talking about Nazis, and I posted pictures of Hajj Amin al Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who volunteered as an ally of the Nazis, who stayed in Berlin for several years at the cost of the German taxpayer at the time, of the German government, who funded.
Yeah, he used to get paid about 50,000 German mark monthly.
Wow, he was living the high life,
Oh
paid for
yeah.
by the Nazis as someone who was trying to promote Nazi propaganda across the Middle East, and of course to inspire the Arabs to fight against the English. And he was a Nazi. So the Grand Mufti, the political leader of Palestine, was literally a Nazi.
To
And
a level that you're I don't know if you know it, but many people don't understand how much of a Nazi he was. uh,
he
we
was.
have we have a draft resolution between him, and he gave it to he was supposed to sign it for the German and Italy. It's seven decrees. I'm going to read one of them and listen to what exactly he wanted to happen. Germany and Italy recognize, that was his own handwriting.
Mhm.
Germany and Italy recognize the illegality of the Jewish home in Palestine. They accord to Palestinian and other Arab countries the rights to resolve the problem of the Jewish elements in Palestine and other Arab countries in accordance with the interest of the Arabs, and by the same method that the question is now being settled in the Axis countries. Under this agreement, no Jewish immigration into Arab countries should be permitted. Did you notice how he want to solve the problem? By the same method Germany and Italy are solving the problem in Europe. That's in 1943.
Wow.
So the
Yeah.
guy was planning in 1943, he was planning a Holocaust uh, after the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
and
crazy.
the most hilarious part is where I got the document from. is from the Palestinian Digital National Library. They actually are proud of that text, and they have that in display.
Shame upon them. And yeah, and here you've got the Nazi Mufti with his Nazi salute with these SS generals, and here you've got Nazi troops, Muslim Nazi troops. There were two. Well, let's just say there was one. There were two at the end of the day, but there was the largest, as far as I know, the largest SS division. That's the Schutzstaffel, the SS group that wore the death's head. They were very
The
loyal.
dagger, as they call the dagger. It's SS Waffen 13.
Yeah. But the largest SS group in the Nazi army was the Muslim division.
It was 150,000.
It's crazy. So the Muslims were the biggest SS division in the Nazi army. So yeah, this is him with Hitler. This is him with. We've seen several photos of that.
You have one of them. Yeah, it's down there. The one with Himmler. It's actually autographed by Himmler. You have down there. You have a picture of him and Himmler that's autographed by Himmler.
Autographed. Well, and here he is. I mean, to just make sure there's no doubt about this, as well. You've got these guys are good buddies. Him and good old Mr. H, with his Nazi salute and so on. So yeah, these guys. He meant business. He was a good Nazi. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
side note before we move in. Arafat was also trained by Nazis. There was a very, very interesting character called Francois Jonois. He was the holder of Hitler copyright for Hitler writing, and he was the executor of the last will and testament of Joseph Goebbels. And he actually was funding the PLO, the Algerian National Front, and he bankrolled Khomeini when he stayed in France. And he paid the legal fee of member of PLO and PFLP when they kidnapped Al Al airplane in the 70s, and he paid the legal fee of the Jackal. So
wow, so he was in the So the company,
that was until 1995. You know, it wasn't in the 40s. He was paying for Arafat until the 90s.
So we've got Arja saying the Muslims were useful idiots in the Third Reich. Maybe the Muslims were willing allies to the Third Reich.
They were not useful idiots. They are, two peas in a pond. The ideology is, hand in gloves. It's actually matched ideologically.
Yeah. There's a lot more in common than there was differences, shall we say. They came to the same conclusions, maybe through different methods, but they certainly had the same sort of tyrannical and murderous ideas.
And you have the same exactly ideology between, you have the master race for the Third Reich, and you have the best nation that brought to mankind, as in the Quran. So conceptually, they are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and few people realize how many Muslim soldiers actually ended up fighting on the Nazi side, and today they love Hitler. They still do. That's the crazy part. So back to this doctrine of al-wala wal-bara, right? You have to love what Allah loves, which is fellow Muslims, and you must hate what Allah hates, which is all disbelievers. So be under no doubt that if you're not a Muslim, Allah hates you, and Muslims are required to hate you. They must follow the will of Allah. So now this doctrine claims to follow the example of Abraham by rejecting non-Muslims, which undermines Islam's claim to be an Abrahamic faith. So this is not sibling rivalry. This is sibling hatred. This is Cain killing Abel writ large. So this is not we're all brothers. No, this is I will kill my brother because I hate him, because God loves him and I want what he has. And that's what that is. It is Cain killing Abel. So the Quran 551 supports this. O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and Christians as allies. They are allies of one another. So if they're not your allies, what are they? They are your enemies. Saudi cleric Sheikh Mohammed al-Munajid, in a 2023 fatwa, something recent, cited this to argue Muslims must avoid friendships with non-Muslims. He's not the first, and it's not the first time this has happened, but as recently as this, you can find these references. So this doctrine is not a fringe doctrine. It is taught in mainstream Islamic education. It is taught in Saudi textbooks. It is taught all over the world. And you can see it in London, you can see it in Paris, you can see it in Germany, you can see it in the US. It is everywhere. It's on college campuses all across the world. We see it in the news every week now. So this makes the non-Muslim an Untermensch. You are the despised kafir. Again, the rest is temporary diplomacy until they are uppermost. And they are starting to feel like they are uppermost. So you say, my
And
friend,
I'm just going to provide a textual verification for that point you just made. There is a hadith, and it's a short one. You can read it whole. Muhammad said, if anyone loves for Allah's sake and hates for Allah's sake, gives for Allah's sake and withheld for Allah's sake, he will have perfected the faith.
wow.
So it's part of faith perfection is al-wala wal-bara, you hate and you love and you give and you withhold for Allah.
Yeah. I mean, did Jesus teach hatred of the other?
Not to my knowledge.
Exactly. But here you have the Muslims literally teaching hatred. Their teaching is hate speech. They call them the radical imams in the British mosques, whatever, who are, fringe extremists. No. This is mainstream. There's nothing secret about it. This is the norm.
That's why I give you the hadith, because that's Muhammad, If
Yeah.
he doesn't know what Islam is, I don't think anybody else would.
Yeah. I mean, where does Allah, I asked a Muslim once, where does Allah teach love for the Christian, love for the Jew?
The word
And
love came in the Quran only once when he was talking to Moses. It came, وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِنِّي. I throw upon you love from me. That's the only one, the only time it came. He just threw love into Moses and it never came again.
wow. Yeah, because I asked someone once, where does the Quran teach love for the non-Muslim? And the guy couldn't answer, and I asked several times, and eventually he says,
Oh no,
"Well,
for the non-Muslim, never.
love." He was like, "How do you define love? Well, what exactly is this love that you're supposed to have?" He was trying to redefine love. Then that was his get out of jail free move. Sorry, you were saying?
I said no, but for that was Moses. For non-Muslims, no, never.
Yeah, exactly. So, but people say, "My friend Ahmad is a sweet person. He's a lovely Muslim."
Then
Well,
he's not a good Muslim.
say again.
Then he's not a good Muslim.
Yeah, then he's not a good Muslim. Exactly.
It's like exactly the same thing, the same answer if I'm talking with an atheist and he start making moral objection. I'm sorry, you're an atheist. You don't believe philosophically, you don't have objective moral standard. So once you start to object about something that's morally unacceptable, you're not being a good atheist here. Because if you're a good atheist, anything goes.
Yeah, they're not consistent at all.
Yeah,
But
the document. If you those are the founding document of Islam: the Quran, Hadith, and Qiyas and Ijma' and so on. If you don't follow those, that means you're not a good Muslim. You're good in despite of, not because of Islam.
yeah, yeah. So very very simply, then we can say, well, Joachim the Nazi was a very sweet Nazi. He loved his family. He worked hard. He provided for them, cared for his dog, took care of his garden, was nice to his neighbors. He was just a hardworking logistics expert who cared for his family. However, Joachim's niceness does not define the established written doctrine behind Nazism, just as Ahmad's nice behavior doesn't define the written doctrine, the established doctrine of Islam. So, this hatred is not theoretical. You've got the Islamic conquests. You can even find, actually, I'll just bring up something because I keep also seeing about, you keep saying about Muslims. Here we go. I'm just going to bring this up.
Okay. Someone was asking a question that's irrelevant, but it's quickly. I'll just answer.
Sure.
Because they're saying Matthew 10:37 teaches hate.
No. He said no. He said someone came on their live stream to claim that Jesus taught hate using Matthew 10:37.
Yeah, it's because love more doesn't mean hate.
Yeah.
I love my neighbor. I love my kids more.
Yeah. So I know it's just that people will try and twist anything to try to make the message different. I mean, it just shows. So, for instance, there were Muslim conquests. Muslims will deny it, but here, this is the periodic golden history of Islamic conquests. This covers like 300 battles or wars they fought. Atlas of the Islamic conquests, of which apparently it's all fiction. The Caliphate of Abu Bakr to the Ottoman Caliphate, from Central Asia to Morocco, Spain, and Central Europe. If you want to ask yourself who attacked first, well, it's the Muslims. This book will tell it to you. So you've
And
got,
in Arab, in the books written at the time, like Ibn al-Hakam and others, فتوح مصر وأخبارها, the conquest of Egypt, they were not shy except until 20th century.
yep,
There was a long thread I had before, was a letter sent by Thomas Jefferson and John Adams to George Washington. They met with the Tripolitan ambassador in London, talking about why you're attacking us, why you're taking American ship and American sailor and American
mhm,
citizen as slaves. And the ambassador of Tripoli says, because it's written in our Quran, you're not Muslims, and it's our right and duty to wage war against you and to take you as slaves. And if we die, we go to paradise. So
yeah,
that's, it's incomprehensible. What do you mean why we're attacking you? We're attacking you because you're not Muslims. And
yep. And now they want to claim it's the religion of peace. Thanks, George Bush.
it is
Yep,
a religion of peace, peace of you over here and peace of you over there.
yep, yeah. So basically, you're talking about sword and subjugation, right? And the Muslims invaded France, for instance. They invaded France in the late 600s, early 700s. What were the Muslims doing in France in the 690s and the 700s, in the early 700s? What were they doing there? The French had never even heard of Arabs at that point. They attacked Spain, they attacked France, they attacked everywhere you can name. I've shown a list.
They went as far as Iceland.
Yes. So
There is a village in Ireland called Baltimore.
Baltimore,
They
yeah.
Yeah, they actually took the entire village as slaves.
Yeah, no, I've covered that extensively on. I've got a whole list of actually the villages, the dates, and when they attacked all the different countries. So they've attacked just about every single country in Europe. They've attacked everywhere, including Poland.
Yeah, 16 to 19th century,
Yeah,
the west coast of Europe was depopulated. Spain, Italy, France, nobody lived in any village at the coast
yeah,
because the North African jihad, it's in English, mistranslation or misnomer. In English, we call it Barbary pirates.
yeah,
It's not called that in Arabic. In Arabic, it's called naval jihad. It's not
yeah,
piracy, it's jihad.
yeah.
And one of the leader is Khairuddin Barbarossa. He's the honor of the religion, the honor of the faith. It was considered a religious duty to kidnap European and enslave them, and up to about 1.2 millions in 200
Actually, the
years.
number is probably much higher. But the number is probably way higher than that. But yeah,
That's the number of North African only. If you're
yeah,
going to add the Crimea slave trade, then the number will triple, because there's and then the Bosnian one. I'm talking just about the three countries in North Africa,
yeah,
and it
no.
didn't end until France actually invaded Algeria.
Yeah. And Ibn Khaldun wrote about Muqaddimah. He writes about the naval jihad. So now what you have is you have the Taliban's execution of apostates in Afghanistan. Okay, this all follows what the Quran teaches. It all follows these doctrines. You've got Boko Haram in Nigeria killing Christians all over the place. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens, tens of them murdered at a time, beheaded. The women, being assaulted and disappeared and so on and used as slaves. So these are not extremists. They are applying the text as they are written. They're doing exactly what it says in the
Sorry,
book.
may I disagree with you here?
You know?
They actually being nicer than what the text suggests. Remember when Taliban blew up the Buddha statue a few
Yeah.
years back? In Islam, they shouldn't let a single Buddhist alive. Taliban were being actually more tolerant than the Islamic text suggests. The text is much more extreme than Taliban.
Well, they will also do things based on political reasons. They're also going to, put
Yes,
their,
but if they want to stick to the Sharia is much more violent than Taliban and ISIS,
yeah, yeah, but they also have to play the political game. They've also got to see how far they can push. But there's
which
a lot
would make
more.
them, according to Sharia, would make them munafiqun, hypocrites, and
No,
non-Muslims.
but remember, they're allowed to do that. There's also other doctrines
Yeah,
like
I know,
commit
but
the law.
that it's the only point I was trying to point out. That's
Yeah.
even with what we think is extreme, that's not extreme enough.
So,
Sharia textbook is more extreme than ISIS and Taliban and Boko Haram.
wow. So that's
During the war of apostasy, I have been in a mass grave in one of the Gulf countries where Abu Bakr literally threw over 20,000 people from the top of the mountain and buried them in a mass grave. You have during the time of Ali, where people being burned alive. So you have people being during the time of Muhammad being torn into pieces by putting them between horses and riding the horse in opposite direction. So you have all of that being practiced by the first generation. You don't have that level of violence today. When you saw ISIS setting people in fire, that's have the precedence in Muhammad generation. So whatever level of violence you would see today, it's not just justified and commanded, it's foundational.
right. Yeah, this is actually from this atlas. This is the wars of apostasy. According to the Muslims, there were multiple. Those wars of apostasy, not just one. The wars on
And yes, I see actually the great. There is an area here near the Gulf of Oman called Diba.
yes, yes, yes,
It's
Dibba.
inside Oman. It's inside Oman, but it's politically belong to the Emirates. That's there is a mass grave of about 20,000 people were thrown off the top of the mountain, and it's still there. But not a lot of people would visit it, and we had to sneak in
I've
because
been
they
to
don't like
Dibba 1,000 times. I had no
they
idea.
don't yeah they don't like tourists going that to that place.
I've been to Dibba 1,000 times. It's crazy. I've been there many times. I mean, wait. Okay, so yeah, let's finish this one. It will be a whole night.
Okay,
But yeah, so Westerners struggle to accept that what we're seeing Muslims do is not an aberration. It's not a bug. It's a feature. The violence is a feature. It's not a bug. So unfortunately, these beliefs have unleashed barbarism, and now it's in your country too. So Westerners have a hard time accepting this because our ideas of love are rooted in the Bible, in Jesus' example, in that of the apostles. Love your neighbor as yourself. In fact, this starts even in the Old Testament. This is not a New Testament teaching, it's in the Old Testament. And this clashes with what the Muslims follow. We are taught to see people as equal in dignity and value, but they don't. They see that as weakness to take advantage of. Islam cloaks itself as an Abrahamic faith. It deceives us that it is a cousin. So we deny Islam's hostility. We say, no, they are misinterpreting the faith. No, they're faithfully applying it. So from 9/11 to London 7/7 bombings and the atrocities in Syria, the atrocities we see now with Hamas, this is the norm. So we cannot deny the reality. We cannot erase the reality. We need to accept this because we have an encroaching threat and we are simply not responding because we are not seeing clearly or truthfully. Yeah, they're able to fool us with lies. So Islam's teachings and these doctrines, like the doctrine of al-wala wal-bara, this frames all non-Muslims as enemies that they must hate, as enemies to fight, as enemies to subdue. And this is backed by scripture and backed by history. It's in their doctrine, it's in their law. We have to accept this truth, not to hate Muslims, but to understand what we're up against. And unfortunately, you may need to fight because it's getting to the point where these people are, they believe that they are close to conquest, and it's past the time of discussion in many cases. So if you want the truth demands clarity, not denial. We're largely in denial, and time is running out. At least on their clock, they see the time running out for us. So, and the last line I've got here, as you may have noticed already, Islamic diplomacy is ending. The mask is off. They're marching in your streets right now, and it's escalating. Yeah, any thoughts from you?
I'll start with something Mad Monkey said. They are able to fool men with lies and deceit. I'm not sure that's true because currently we have hours of video of a preacher in almost every European country, Canada and America, telling you we're here to take over, we hate you, we are commanded to kill you, and we're going to do it. You have hundreds, if not thousands, of terrorist cases that happen in Berlin, Paris, Munich, Madrid, and everywhere. And you have the textbook that says they're going to carry on doing this. So I have no idea why a Western society is still lulled into the false security, because the guys telling you that's what we want to do. They are doing what they said they want to do, and they promise to repeat it ad infinitum. Why we don't believe them in what they mean, and why we don't believe them that they actually here to take over, or that they hate you and they want to destroy the whole society, I don't know. I really don't know. But it's not, they are not deceiving you. They literally telling you what they want to do. They want to
Yeah,
kill you.
we're deceiving ourselves, maybe. But I think I'm seeing a change. I'm seeing people are openly talking about civil war. I'm seeing people are getting angry, and there's going to be a pushback. And France, maybe Germany, maybe the UK, it's going to kick off somewhere. This is my fear. This is my concern. It is coming. There's going to be an action like Southport that is going to cause a response, and then it's going to just be a chain reaction after that.
I really hope you're wrong.
I
And I
don't.
know you hope you're wrong too. But logically, I can see what you're saying. I'm just saying, I hope you're wrong, but logically, that's where it's heading.
Yeah,
There are, the last time I was in Paris, I didn't recognize the street. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm in Paris or Kabul.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I saw more Arabs in London than I saw them in Beirut.
Only 36% of London is white British native. So
And there are some, last time I visited there were some underground station are actually not written in English because people in the area don't speak English.
yeah,
It's like,
it's crazy. I
so
speak to people. It's people are angry. There is anger boiling. There's an
no,
undercurrent.
I have no problem with a multi-ethnic, multi-confessional society as long as the government stays out of everything and we all, intellectually speaking, are in the marketplace of idea. But currently, all across Europe, you as a Christian are not allowed to voice your opinion because you'll be held under Islamophobic charges and so on. You have a government that's muzzling its citizen and leaving other to have a free reign. I remember the video where they had, and it was in Britain, someone silently praying in front of the
Yes,
Porsche Clean got arrested. But
yes.
the same city where you got the video of people saying we want Jewish blood, that nothing happened. Where you
Yeah,
got people
we have.
walking around with a prescribed terrorist organization flag, nothing
I mean, just
happens.
just just recently in the UK, there was another Hamas march with the Hamas flag of jihad, and someone walked along. A British man walked alongside, and all he said was, "I believe he was saying, go England, go England,"
I
right?
would get arrested for it
And he
probably.
no, he literally got arrested. He
Yeah,
literally
because
got arrested for supporting England because they said he's inciting violence and he's potentially being racist to these people who are supporting a foreign terrorist organization that is on the terrorist ban list in the UK. It's crazy.
yeah, it's like when you're getting murdered and you scratch your assailant and they charge you with the battery because you scratched your assailant or something.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
it's like the concept of defense of the self of others in Europe doesn't seem to exist.
Yeah. No, of course. And people realize that the governments are actively antagonistic towards them. And I think you're going to see there's going to be at some point. I think there will be an eruption, and that's my fear. But this is not only mine. There's a guy called David Betts, Dr. David Betts. He's probably the best expert on the development of civil war, civil strife in the world, and he works for multiple governments, writes papers for these various governments and organizations, and he has predicted there will be civil war in the UK. It's coming. So
And
that's
I see the logic. I'm just saying, I hope you're wrong.
Yep. But look, it's going to start spreading. Look, also as for instance in the UK, as white people move out of the cities, right? As they cede the cities to the foreigners, and the foreigners then encroach into that empty space, into the gaps and the vacuum that's left, they move to the countryside. But now the government is deliberately putting these migrants in the countryside as well. So there's nowhere that's safe. And at some point, there's going to be a pushback. And people need to realize that yes, you've got very aggressive Muslims. They are well prepared for this civil war that they are agitating for actively. However, they are called a minority for a reason, because they are a minority. And once the majority population is pushed to the with their backs to the wall and they cannot retreat anymore, the problem is that what happens then is you will have a chain reaction that can galvanize the entire national population. And that,
And the one little disagreement I have, the idea of being loud and being aggressive doesn't mean actually you strategically in a better place. 1948, 7 Arab armies attacked 500,000 Jews, and the 7 Arab armies lost. They were more aggressive because, as you know, culture-wise, as Arabic-speaking native, we are very loud, but we don't do much action.
you know,
So the people you see them beating their chest and you want a piece of me, those were the first one who will push someone else to go to fight their fight. And I don't think, even in the history of the last 30 years, you've seen anything compared to a winning army of any Islamic country. Yes, they managed to do a lot of terrorist attack in Boko Haram, Taliban, and others,
mhm.
but it's always a nuisance, not actually lead to victory. The only victory an Islamic country had was not a victory by an Islamic country, but was a loss by Biden administration when they left Afghanistan. If they didn't leave, the Taliban couldn't make them. We lose war, they don't win it. You see the difference?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just putting these two articles. I've just dropped this one now in the chat. So both articles have been listed in the chat.
Okay, this one I'm going to listen more than I talk because
Yeah,
I want to know what you're getting at.
yeah, and they're in the description as well. For those who want to read these articles, so Allah is Isa's father, and Isa is greater than Muhammad. I think I'm just using basic logic, and I'm just going to take just basic logic, right? Never mind the gaslighting that Islam does loopy loops. It does pretzels to try to get away from the fact that Isa, the Islamic Jesus, is birthed by the will of his father Allah. But we'll get to that. So, who is the father of Islam's version of Jesus? It's an honest question. Who is the father of the Islamic Jesus? Who's his father? Is Gabriel his father? Jibrish, the angel Jibrish? Is Allah his father? Is some random guy that we don't know of? Who is his father? Well, we know the Quran tells us. So let's go on. So, who's the father of the Islamic Jesus? The answer is quite logical. Allah is Isa's father. The Quran claims that Allah is no father. Quran 11:23. Sorry, Quran 112 verse 3. He neither begets nor is he begotten. Yet it asserts that Isa, the Muslim version of Jesus, was a virgin birth to Mary or Maryam. So great, you have a virgin birth. Because she says in Quran 19:20, how can I have a son when no man has touched me? So who fathered Isa? Now, the evidence, of course, points directly to Allah, exposing a fatal contradiction in Islamic theology. Now, of course, they've danced a whole bunch of steps to try to get around this rather obvious point, to try to explain it away. But let's discuss. Quran 66:12 tells us, "We breathed into her of our spirit, Allah's
Uh,
spirit." Yes.
Sorry, don't stop for a second. That's a wrong translation.
Okay.
The Arabic translation said, وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهِ, we breathed into it, not her.
So into her vajayjay, or
Yes, because the actual verse I'm translating from Arabic, there's also an example of Mary, daughter of Imran, who guarded her chastity. So we breathed into her. That's a wrong translation. Who guarded her private part. so we breathed into it.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. That would make sense. But that said, you see, even when they make these false English translations, right? Even when they do these weird English translations, they still paint themselves into a hole. They're still because they're trying to prettify, they're trying to whitewash what's in there, but they still cause themselves issues because this becomes the standard narrative, right?
No,
So
the Arabic, we breathed into her womb from our spirit. Take
yeah,
that as you may. So,
yeah. So with Allah's command, causing Esau's birth. So we breathed into her out of our spirit. I mean, look, you're going to find, if you go through 20 different Quran variations, you're going to find 15 different versions of the sentence, right? Or translations. So Allah's command causes Esau's birth. Allah's command. Allah's spirit is breathed in. So Allah is not physical. He doesn't have sperm. He's got spirit. He's a spiritual being. So, of course, Allah causes it with his spiritual sperm, if you want to call it that.
we breathed into it from our spirit.
Yeah, from our spirit. So it's directly. So in other words, that's from his own self, right? So Quran 19:21 says that this is a sign from your Lord. It's a miracle from your Lord. It's a miracle from Allah. It's from Allah. There's no doubt. It's from Allah. It's Allah's spirit that went into you. So therefore, it is the same substance as Allah. Is that a logical conclusion to draw, do you think?
Okay. Uh, I would have to ask you to define one word, and then before I say this logical conclusion or not, you're using the word father here to mean originator or
Yeah, we'll
source.
get to that. I define it as I go further down.
Okay, because it depends on the definition of the word, because the word linguistically can have plethora of meanings, and but I see the source of it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not arguing that.
yeah, in any rational framework, the one who initiates a child's existence is the father. And here, Allah's substance, Allah's actual essence, the same essence as Allah, is used to create this birth, right? So the same substance, there you go. So in any rational framework, anyone who initiates a child's existence is the father. So Allah's spirit triggers the conception. So Allah is the father. Jibril, cited by some Muslims, is not a candidate. He's merely a messenger who delivers Allah's word. Allah's
One thing about Jibril here, because the verse you used before, 66:12, we breathe into it from our spirit. You cannot use Jibril unless he says Jibril is the spirit of Allah, which means Jibril either must be eternal. Then you have two
eternal things.
gods, two eternals, or Allah with is spiritless until Jibril was created.
Wow, that's
because
fantastic.
because it says we breathed into it from our spirit.
Yeah,
If Allah has a spirit that's eternal, always existed, then it cannot be a created being. Allah's spirit cannot be created.
yes. So, but
Otherwise, he would be spiritless before.
perfect. Excellent. Excellent analysis. So just using basic logic, I'm hoping to show the audience this story doesn't stack up. It doesn't add up. So he's delivering, so Jibril delivers Allah's word, right? To give you a pure boy. So a pure boy with Allah's word is pure. Allah's will is pure, right? Allah's essence is pure, and his essence is used to birth a pure boy. So that's interesting. But Allah's got nothing to do with this, apparently. He's not a father. Now, right, so he's a messenger delivering Allah's word, and he's not the source. In Quran 16:2, the angels obey Allah. He's just simply doing what Allah has asked him to do or told him to do. So a father creates, Allah creates, because Allah is the creator. Jibril is not a creator. Jibril does not create. Now this clashes with Quran 112 verse 3's denial of begetting. If Allah causes a son, then he begets, contradicting his own doctrine. Now, if you take basic Aristotelian non-contradictory logic, something that I've covered extensively, and I do this all the time, just basic logic solves a lot of questions, right? Solves a lot of problems. And using logic, you'd have to reject this claim because Allah cannot initiate Isa's birth and not be his father. And what does Islam say to this? Well, pretty much silence, leaving a paradox. There's no real.
There is one thing linguistically. The verse you used, begetting, lam yalid wa lam yulad.
Mhm.
In Arabic, linguistically there is a difference between ibn, which is like ben in Hebrew, and walad or yalad. Walad uh, is it's always through a sexual relationship, but ibn doesn't.
Mhm.
So when you use to say he's the son, he's ibn, Isa ibn Allah, it doesn't actually entail a sexual relationship, which the Quran denies.
Yeah.
Quran denies birthing, not being father. You know that because birthing requires the sexual element
Mhm.
to give birth, but to be a father doesn't.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, you can. Yeah.
And that's as far as language go. We use the phrase ibn to refer to lots of things like ibn Masr, son of Egypt. Egypt didn't give me birth, but I'm still its son.
Well,
Uh,
also, I mean,
so
there's a couple of points I'll raise related to that because
mhm.
obviously Allah doesn't come to Earth and all that, so you've got to use a proxy and all that and blah blah, right? So
He does, by the way, when you get to it.
yeah, I know, but there's nothing in Islam that doesn't contradict itself. I know that, but we're just going with the story as we're told. Yeah. Now, Allah's transcendence actually worsens the problem for us because unlike the Christian God who fathers Jesus directly, right? In Luke 135, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, right? Allah stays aloof, like Quran 17:43. Exalted is Allah above, because Allah only comes down to the lowest heavens or to the clouds or whatever. He farts around just above your house, right? Now, so Allah needs Jibril as a proxy, but of course, this doesn't explain how. What is the burning bush? Allah was in the burning bush on earth, right? So, so yeah, you get all of these contradictions. But that aside, he now needs, according to the standard narrative, Jibril as a proxy. Now, the question is, do Islamic angels procreate? And the answer is no. Now, if Jibril's role is the father, then why not call Jibril the father? But he's not the father. So if Allah begets, why is he not a father? If you create something, if God makes Jesus, then God's the father. And if Allah makes Isa, then he's the father of Isa. So Isa is Allah's sign. He's not Jake on the corner, the baker's sign. He's Allah's sign. That's Quran 21:91. Only Allah is the creator, and birthing Isa is Allah's will and Allah's intention. All of these requirements are there to state that this is Allah's intention, it's His will, it's His essence. Allah creates, and this is Allah's sign. All of this is purely from Allah, for Allah, by Allah. Yeah. So Allah alone creates, and as per Quran 66:12 and 19:17 to 19, Jibril breathed Allah's spirit into Maryam by Allah's command. So this is done at Allah's command and Allah's spirit. So this is the essence of Allah, the peace of Allah, the critical part of Allah is breathed into Maryam. So this is not some secondary thing. This is Allah's own physical essence. How many humans are created from Allah's own essence? Well, not many, as far as I know. Any comment there? Any thought, Ibn?
No, please carry on. I'm still waiting.
So the Quran dodges the answer, but the logic is very clear. Allah's act makes him the father, which puts the Islamic Jesus in a different category over Muhammad. Jesus has a special, or shall we say Isa, right, has a special status in
Yeah,
Islam.
because they are not the same person in any way.
Yeah, agreed. I know, but yeah. So, but he has a special status in Islam. I mean, they usurp him, they claim him anyway. They're saying that Jesus, blah blah. So the Quran affirms that Jesus, Isa, was born of a virgin birth by Allah's will. Muhammad was not born of a virgin birth. Right? Quran 3:45 to 47. She said, "My Lord, how will I have a child when no man has touched me?" And the angel said, "Such is Allah. He creates what He wills." So Allah created a son because He willed it. And Jesus in the Quran performs miracles, healing the blind, raising the dead, and He ascended to heaven by Allah. When His life was threatened, Allah took Him safely to paradise to be with Him. What happened was Muhammad died from poison. So Muhammad didn't get any of these benefits that Jesus, he didn't get any of the favor that Jesus got, right? Quran 4:158, Allah raised him up to himself. In contrast, the Quran does not attribute any miracles to Muhammad, explicitly stating that Muhammad was not given signs like previous prophets. And we refrain from sending the signs only because the men of former generations treated them as false. Any comment before I go on?
Go on.
So this underscores a very big theological distinction. Jesus is depicted with divine favor. Jesus has divine signs. Jesus is divinely initiated. His entire life, his birth, and his rescue before dying, all of this shows divine favor. All of this separates him and shows how different he is. Virgin birth, miracles, divine favor, and then rescuing, taking him to heaven to be safe with Allah, because Allah doesn't want him dead, doesn't want him killed. But Muhammad gets murdered, and Muhammad dies and is buried. So Muhammad's role is confined merely to delivering a message, as he claims to be only a warner, Quran 29:50. Now, I know that if you read the Sirah, Muhammad becomes a divine figure. He literally is a part of Allah. He is in effect Allah, but he's like a twin of Allah. It's quite honestly, he's a deity. Allah makes the world for him, makes the universe for him.
He becomes a little bit higher.
In a real sense, yes, you're right.
Because if you blaspheme in Islam, if you blaspheme against Allah and you repent, you're forgiven. But if blasphemy against Muhammad, repentance is not accepted.
And you're killed, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So it becomes a little bit higher. And then he has some prerogative nobody has, not even Allah.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, so Muhammad becomes a deity. Muhammad becomes literally synonymous with Allah as the lawgiver in the Sharia. So they are one effectively, but yeah, Allah ultimately is of a slightly lower position than Muhammad. So you've got this theological distinction, right? Muhammad is only a warner. Muhammad only came with a message. He's just a DHL messenger, right? He's a postman. So Islam's theology will crumble if Allah is a father, as his spirit begets a child. Now, to deny that Allah begot the child defies logic and reason and just the basic facts. And this contradicts Quran 112, verse 3, while claiming the miracle of a virgin birth for Jesus, because Allah actively created this child. Didn't happen by accident. Allah actively gave of himself to make the child. So the only reason that they would do this is to elevate Muhammad over Jesus. They would have to come up with this tortured set of reasons to deny Jesus' true status, or Isa's true status as the favored son of Allah. Because according to the logic as I see it, according to the facts, Allah is undeniably Isa's father, because causing him equals fatherhood. So the rest is Islamic word games to deny this very basic fact.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm getting from that is the Islamic doctrine about who Allah is and who Isa is are inconsistent with each other and leave the entire system as incoherent rant.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, one of the things you said when you were talking about the inconsistency and incoherence, and you said Allah cannot be seen, the transcendence of Allah, I talked about. I said, not really. I'm not sure if you know this. This hadith was quoted by Ibn Taymiyyah. You know Ibn Taymiyyah? Muhammad says he saw Allah as a beardless youth with a curly hair.
Something, right?
Sorry?
Like a barefoot, beardless man, barefoot, bearded man, or non-bearded man.
Yeah, beardless, curly hair, and wearing a green clothes, and it's actually an authentic hadith. So he can be seen, he cannot be unseen. Take your pick. It's the inherent contradiction within the system itself. But I can see the logic. I do understand you're not saying that Muslim says Isa is the son of Allah. It's like, actually, no, the logic you have, you're giving him prerogative that's denied to Muhammad, but simultaneously elevating Muhammad above him, where logically in Quran and in Hadith he's above Muhammad.
Yes.
and so your entire system is incoherent.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think we know that. Yeah.
yeah, no, this way I can see it. Yes, it's like if you don't like the conclusion, go and fight with whoever wrote the Quran, not with you.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the morality of Jesus versus the morality of Muhammad, if you look at the favor Allah gives Jesus,
The morality of Jesus, where?
well, if you go to the Bible in this
Yes,
case,
because the morality of Jesus in the Quran is really not that great, or in
yeah,
Islam.
agreed. I mean, they use Gnostic tales to describe them. They use
And
4th century Gnostic tales.
raising someone from the dead to kill him again, and deceiving people is just he has questionable morality in Islam.
It's Gnosticism. I mean, these are the Gnostic myths that they've just repurposed for
Oh
their
yeah,
own use.
it was some of it was taken from Raja Hamadi library.
Yeah, exactly. No, agreed, agreed. Do you know that the Naj Hammadi, Hammadi is actually a diminutive of Muhammad, and I wonder if this is stories of Muhammad. Why is it called Naj Hammadi? You know the what's the word Naj? What's the meaning of Naj in English?
Naja means oasis.
No, there's another word. There's another meaning for it. Esteemed or something like that, or
No,
honored.
no, 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 Naja Hamadi. It's a name of a small town in South Egypt.
Yeah, but there's
Uh,
another word. I did some looking at this. I can never remember the word, but apparently, but Hamadi is with Muhammad. Now, why would all of these Gnostic texts be in a place that is named after Muhammad? It has the name, the appellation Muhammad on it. I just found it really strange. Because Hamadi is a diminutive of Muhammad. So why do you have Gnostic texts in a place called Muhammad?
Naja Hamadi was named after a tribe called Bani Hamad. That's where they dwelled in that area.
Right.
So historically, that's where the name came from.
Okay. Yeah.
But the other thing, if you want to play the name's meaning is Muhammad's name translated into Hebrew. Judas, Yehuda.
Really?
Yep.
Say that again?
You know the name Yehuda,
Yeah. Yeah.
Judas. If he translated to Arabic, would be the same root as Muhammad.
Wow.
Just ironic, It's the name that translated would become Judas.
That's crazy. So yeah, but I think just given the basic facts, right? Allah intends to create Isa. Allah sends
Isa in the Quran has, and a lot of Muslims see this, has prerogative and characteristic that in the Quran and Hadith are not seen by any Muslim, not even Muhammad. Like according to Hadith, Isa is the only being that's sinless.
yeah,
He's the only being that's a direct creation, which he used the fatherhood, the origination, and he's the only one who actually coming back to rule, according to Hadith.
yeah. So but just according to the basic facts, how Allah desperately wants to have a kid, but then at the same time they're trying to tell you, yeah, actually he's not a father because he didn't do any fathering, but he went out of his way to father someone with his own essence. You're like, yeah, So
And
that
we
makes sense.
we ended up where we started. It's incoherent system.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, but logically, it has to be Isa. Isa intended it. Isa willed it. Isa made his angel do it. Otherwise, they would have just called Jibril his father.
You
But it's
remember you remember the kid you were talking with yesterday on X,
oh
and
yeah,
who
that, yeah,
refused absolutely to talk with you because the way I saw it, there is a certain level where the logical conclusion of any argument is none accepted by Muslim, but there is no way out of the logic of the therefore of the conclusion of an argument. So the only way out is either call your name or I don't want to talk to you.
yeah. I
You
mean, you know
know,
how many Muslims have when I catch them on a point and they can't find their way out, they just block me and they run away. They leave a last comment and they block me. They insult me with a last comment and they block
oh
me.
yeah, I get people asking me, so you have to respect me and respect my belief. I said, I respect you, but I don't respect your belief. Not in a million years. Okay, I don't want to talk to you then. Okay,
Yeah,
don't.
no. Yeah, I mean, I invited the guy to say, well, look, I mean, if you say I'm wrong, by all means, I'll give you a couple of hours online to come and prove your point that I'm wrong, and I'd be happy to.
And I actually love to be proven wrong because that means I learned something. It doesn't help me if I'm proven right. So what? Prove me wrong. That means I learned something I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it from me, everyone. So that I just wanted to cover these two articles. I've got some more that I'm busy. Was Esau born under a date tree? I don't think so. Yeah. So that's it. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you've all gained something out of this. But there is just basic logic. I mean, who is Esau's father? I mean, who is? There's only one answer to that question. It's quite
Yeah,
obvious.
the story of the date tree, you should read it all. It's quite funny because according to the Quran, Mary, a young lady who just given birth, was shaking a palm tree, shaking the palm tree hard enough so the dates would fall from the tree. Do you know how strong you have to be to shake a palm tree? Have you ever tried that?
You're not going to be shaking any palm trees, man.
So it's like she was commanded to shake the palm tree. It's like, how would you do that?
Because make it make sense. It doesn't.
No, no, you know, because when it doesn't, one of the most common phrase for most Muslim scholars, Allahu A'lam, when it doesn't make any sense, Allah knows best.
Exactly,
It's
and
like,
that's actually in the Akida as
yeah,
well.
the discussion we have is we would like to know because Allah knows best. He put the whole thing into the unknowability and Gnosticism.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So guys, that's it from me. That's hopefully this has enlightened you. You realize that we have
It
a
was
problem.
entertaining.
Thank you. Yeah, but guys, look, we don't have the media on our side. We can only speak the truth. That's all you need to do. If you want to know what it is that you know what the facts are, speak the truth. It's simple. In that movie, The Kingdom of Heaven, Balin gets told, "Speak the truth, even if it kills you." And back to Solzhenitsyn, he says basically, you will pay a price for telling the truth. You'll lose your job. You will be injured in life somewhere because of this. But there is no compromise for the man who wants to speak the truth. Jesus died because he spoke the truth. He would not compromise the truth. So,
Because if you don't, actually, it's quite corroding to you personally. It affects you more than it affects the listener. You will find the people who are getting used of being habitual liar, and they personal life turn into misery. They are the first casualty of their own lies.
yeah, yeah. But guys, just speak the truth. I mean, Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life." And the truth is something that, yeah, we can determine what the truth is well enough for us to live a good life. But yeah, guys, so that's that for me for tonight. I will be back with Usama bin Usama bin Laden, Usama Dak Dark tomorrow. What was I thinking? So final word to you, Ibn.
No, thank you for having me again. And final word, someone was saying, speak the truth. How to lose friends and alienate people. Well, if you have friends that you lose them by speaking the truth, they are not good friends to have.
Yeah, but also I guess this is where I look. All of us can improve. All of us can improve our personalities and our behaviors. Jesus, the Bible does say, "Speak the truth in love." This is a lesson that I definitely can work on. There's something definitely that I fail at. So, but yeah, let's remember, just speak the truth, but be kind. Don't wield the truth as a weapon, as an ugly weapon to beat your friends over the head with. Now, if you're trying to save your country against people who are your enemies, that's different. But otherwise, try to be gracious when you use the truth.
Thank you and goodbye.
Good night, guys. Everyone, take care. Bye. God bless.